From the shadows where the whispers grow, through the night where the warriors flow, feel the power in the tales untold. Lord Ninja Choke takes a strong hold.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Law Ninja Choke MMA Picks podcast. And today we're going to go through every bet we placed for the UFC 321 card that's coming up this Saturday, headlined by Tom Aspinall and Ciryl Gane. As always, we're going to recap our results from last week. Will, how was your night last Saturday?
Mixed bag, but overall very happy. I staked 15.5 units and profited 6.26, which is pretty nice. Return on investment of 40%. Very happy with that. But then you'll see on the screen that my picks actually went 6 wins and 7 losses, which I don't necessarily care about. The bets and the ROI is way more important. But it's quite surprising, really. You'd think that if I'm losing more predictions than I'm winning, that I'm having a bad night. But got good with some props, basically. So from the start of the card onwards, got off to a really great start, which I think that's 3 events in a row where I've hit like a decent sized prop on the first fight of the night. So Melissa Croden had her to win, got a really good CLV on that. The 2-unit bet at plus 140. Also the inside the distance, that was really nice. It was nice cheering that on in the 3rd round. I didn't think she'd hit it, but she did. So good for her. Then next up, the order's a bit wrong here. I had 3 units on Kyle Nelson versus Matt Frivola to end in under 2.5 rounds. And as I'm sure you can imagine, if you watch the fight, I was very salty because there was the phantom finish at the end of round 1. To be fair, having watched it back, Dan Mergliotto, I believe it was Dan Mergliotto, wasn't it? He didn't wave the fight off. He stopped. He stepped in to stop it as if the round ended. So actually, it was a non-issue. It was just the fact that he didn't hear the buzzer and did it 3 seconds early, so that's fine. But it was actually a stroke of good luck for me because I was a few drinks deep and pretty fuming about it. So I thought, right, I'm going to go and win my money back. Charles Jourdain was fighting next. I had 3 units on him at minus 110. And I thought, hang on a second, I liked the Charles Jourdain by submission angle. What price is it? And I saw it was plus 650. And I thought, hell yeah, that is an amazing line. And about 3 minutes later, I had won all the money back that I'd lost on that weird Frivola finish. So cashed on Jourdain and Jourdain by submission. Then it all fell apart as Jasmine Jasdavicius had a very disappointing showing for all of 2 minutes against Manon Fiorot. Had her to land 1 takedown at plus 120, which I still think is a really good line. Like, I would bet that again. I mean, how often does Manon Fiorot finish Jasdavicius in like 2 minutes? Not often. I don't think anyone saw that coming. So yeah, that was still a nice bet. And then we had the weird and wonderful Mike Malott versus Kevin Holland fight. As I said earlier on, I was a few drinks deep by this point, and I was very keen to bet Mike Malott live after he obviously compromised Kevin Holland with the groin shot and didn't get a point deducted. I think he was like minus 225 on the betting line live. So I took that with Ikram Alaskarov, which obviously tails us into bets for this upcoming card. That was a nice play. I really knew I wanted to play Alaskarov, but I couldn't find another leg that I really liked. And whilst we were 5 minutes, I think it was 10 minutes into the fight, and I thought Mike Malott was 2-0 up. I thought, well, yeah, that's a great bet at minus 225. I also had a unit on Mike Malott to win by decision, which was nail biting, but also great because obviously, all the stopping and starting really ruined the flow of the fight. But I was obviously worried that Malott was going to get a point deducted. And then into the top of the card, I had 2 units on Marlon Vera. I think he really let me down there. Marlon Vera is not the guy he used to be. I was hoping we would see a little bit of a return to form, but he's just not very smart, is he? He just doesn't seem to make the reads and realize what he needs to realize inside the cage, and it cost him. I think it was a winnable fight. I don't understand how Ayman Zahabi keeps getting away with it. It's insane to me, really. Obviously, a push on the scorecards, no action there. Still think that was a good bet. And then by this point, I was at my most drunkest. That's not a word. And I put 1.5 units on Brendan Allen to win by decision at the end of round 3, or maybe the start of round 3 against Renier Derrida. I thought it was pretty obvious that Allen had won. Derrida didn't have anything left to give. But unfortunately, I overestimated his heart. I thought he would hang around, but he did not. He threw in the towel, and I lost 1.5 units at minus 150. So yeah, yeah, a lot of chopping and changing. So one of those things where, like, if I imagine my actual slate for this time last week when we reported it before the event looks very different from the overall numbers and bets here. But it's MMA. You've got to make adjustments when you can. So very happy to have come away with profit. Really looking forward to this UFC 321 card though to keep the momentum going. How about you, Dom? How did you get on for Vancouver?
Yeah, for me it was a sort of break-even night. I really enjoyed the card. I thought it was really fun. It was interesting because when we did the early leans and predictions, I was, harping on about Brendan Allen and Jasmine as good dogs, and I knew that I just knew in my heart I was going to play one of them. I just played the wrong one. So you already talked about JJ letting us down. It was really disappointing, of course. I don't blame her. You get caught, right? It's MMA. That's why we love the sport. She got caught like cold straight off the bat. Didn't even really get to see any of the matchup. So it's a big question mark, isn't it, as to what would have happened in that fight if it had been extended. And yeah, hats off to Brendan Allen. I thought he weathered the early storm and then just dominated, really. It was really strange to see RDR gas that bad, but taking a lot of ground and pound on the mat, I guess, took it out of him. So it was a break-even night in the sense that, down 9% here, but one of the bets that I listed last week was the split decision, Zahabi against Vera. So I had that, and that covered the loss here. I also actually placed a live bet on Malott at the point of the fight when he had groin shotted Kevin Holland. And I think the odds at the time were plus 200. And I think that's because the market was assuming a point was going to be deducted. He was going to lose that round. Of course, it was a very strange situation where Holland took the whole 5 minutes and then proceeded to not want to fight. So it was kind of bizarre situation. And then at the end of that round, he was saying, like, if you don't fight, the ref was saying, I think Dan Mergliotto was saying to Kevin Holland, if you don't come out to fight, you're going to lose this match by disqualification. I think that might have been the point I placed a live bet, because I was thinking, this is typical Kevin Holland behavior. So yeah, I managed to catch that, which was good. But yeah, overall the bets were hit and miss. I had Bruno Silva points handicap, which of course I didn't need that. That would be him to win a round, but he won that fight. The main event to go to round 3. That felt pretty safe. And then just a terrible parlay with Danny Barlow in, which was really mindless of me. So overall, I think there's a few lessons to be learned, but just glad not to have lost a larger amount of money. Josh, how did you do?
Yeah, I am pretty peeved that Jazz and Fury didn't hit the over 2.5 round mark. I really wanted another parlay to hit. It's been a while. I miss the feeling. But in terms of my predictions, rocky start. Although I will say that I did highlight Balgarui, I think last episode, or the one before that. I did highlight him as a potential dog, and he did showcase great striking. So I did make money from that, but that's not tracked. No one cares. My alt bets kind of hit at a reasonable clip. Big enough clip that I did make some money back that can sustain me for this week. But yeah, it's a bit disappointing. Some loss in my prediction accuracy by 0.3%, which hurts, especially now that there's only a few events left in the year. So my hopes and dreams of hitting 65% plus is kind of dwindling. And then silly me hit De Ridder as a lock, and I got really, really pissed off during that fight because De Ridder looked like someone who ate at a buffet and got into a fight. He was good for the first round and then just died afterwards. It's like, come on. So yeah, I got nothing really positive to say here other than that I hope this week, being a pay-per-view, brings some luck, and if it does, then I'm happy. But if not, then fuck. I don't know. So yeah, that's my ramble on for this recap.
Yeah, let's take a look at the card for this week, and we can get our thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, it always gets me.
I lost my train of thought for a second there. So this card is definitely the best card in recent memory. I think probably since the last numbered event, to be honest. We've had a string of really, decent, I'd say, regional events. So now it's back to the numbered events. Aspinall, Gane as the headliner, and then Jandaroba Dern as the co-main. Which fights are you looking forward to, guys, and why?
Yeah, look, I'll let Will take over here. I kind of hinted towards Will taking over this segment last night, so Will, have at it.
Boys, it is Mackenzie Dern fight week. That's all I need to say. It's Mackenzie Dern fight week. She's going to win the belt. She's going to win the belt. I'm going to win loads of money. Everyone's going to be happy. No, I'm kidding. It's a great card. Yeah, I am interested in literally every single fight here. There isn't really a single fight that's like shite. Like this, all this, like most of the fights on this card would be good enough to headline an Apex event, which is pretty cool. The main card's got lots of like intrigue in it. I mean, Mirzakhanov looks like he could potentially be in the running for a title shot in the future if he can get it going. Almeida has been in the wings of potentially a title shot at heavyweight. Umar needs to bounce back. Mario Bautista might also be a prospect. We'll see. Aspinall versus Gane, like even though the betting line suggests it's going to be a one-sided fight, I think it's interesting as well. Ciryl Gane presents probably the most intriguing stylistic matchup for Tom Aspinall. So if ever there was a time where we were going to go, is Aspinall going to be one of the greats? This is the time where he could get shot down. So there's just so much intrigue across the card. Even the prelims has got some fun ones apart from Abdel Wahab. That fight's no one needs that one. Aside from that, just really excited. I think I've done a good job of also hyping it up. Like I've been kind of comedically hyping up this Jandaroba versus Dern fight because obviously I'm quite invested in it, which we'll see in a minute. But it's just a great card. I'm very excited for it. It's also in Abu Dhabi, which means it's like an early evening card in the UK. So I'm actually going to be watching the first couple of fights at work and then snowballing straight into the card. So I'm absolutely buzzing. It's going to be a great time. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Lucky you for having a nice time card. Like for me and us Aussies, this card starts at 1 o'clock in the morning, so I'm gonna be awake, annoyingly so. And I mean, I don't mind being awake for a card like this, but by the time it's over, I'm gonna be fucking dead. So in terms of the quality of the card, it's, as Will said, it's one of the best cards we've seen in a while. I'm not too sure about the whole prelims though. Like there are so many names there that I just can't really see being a big name in the future. Like, I mean, Abdul Karim Al Sawadi versus Mateus Camilo. That feels like a Dana White Contender Series fight to me. That's posted on a UFC card. Jose Delgado kind of intrigues me because I do think he has the potential to get a knockout, but I mean he's fighting Nathaniel Wood, and I mean I'm a huge supporter of what Wood's done in his career. I mean he comes from a long lineage of great coaches and fighters and stuff, so I look forward to seeing if he can really get around that knockout power of Delgado. What else is there really? I mean, I guess we'll highlight pretty much everything else. I mean, I'm very keen on Aspinall versus Gane. This is a fight that I've predicted to happen for about 2 years now, like one of those what if situations, and I'm so happy that it's happening now. But I am going to be heartbroken regardless of who wins because I am a fan of both. So it's a tough one for me. So yeah, I can't wait, but I also can wait because of the start time. But yeah, that's all I got for that one. What about you, Dom? What do you think?
Yeah, for me, this card starts at 7 a.m. in the morning, which is quite a normal time for me to get up since I'm on the west coast of the US. So I will be getting up as usual and start my day with UFC. And yeah, I would take my hats off to the UFC matchmakers because there's so many close fights here that are really intriguing. Yeah, there's a few that you've mentioned, Josh, that we can throw away. I don't know why Nathaniel Wood, Jose Delgado is all the way down there, but that's obviously the first fight, which is closely lined. Then if you go a bit further up, you have Ludovic Klein, Mateusz Rebecki, closely lined. You have Nasrat Hakparas, Quillan Salkill, closely lined. Then Rakic Mirzakhanov closely lined, and then even up to the co-main event, you've got a relatively closely lined Werner versus Mackenzie co-main. So yeah, those are the ones I'm actually super interested in, not only from watching but from betting. I haven't bet all of them, but yeah, let's dive into it and take a look at our bets this week.
Yeah, so only a few fights actually kind of targeted for me, but very excited about my position on all of them. So if you listened to the early leans breakdown for UFC 321, you may have heard that I had bet Ciryl Gane for half a unit. I was happy with that. I have cashed out of it since, but I don't disagree with that position at all. But I just felt like the Tom Aspinall submission line was equally appealing, and I'd rather be betting on a prop of a favorite than a dog that probably loses. So I've got 1.5 units on Tom Aspinall by submission, because I think that, I mean, from listening to interviews and stuff, I think that Aspinall is kind of alluding to the fact that he's interested in like showing off his fight IQ here and taking the path of least resistance. He's also a very intelligent guy. He understands the risk of fighting these massive dudes. He's always very humble and respectful of like the danger that his opponents possess. And I think that the path of least resistance really does show itself to be in that grappling realm. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a more wrestling active Tom Aspinall, and hopefully he can find a submission. For the fun of it, I've got a 0.1 unit bet on him to win by Kimura or Americana, simply because that is how he beat Volkov, if I remember correctly. And those are kind of not more advanced submissions, but I feel like they're the kind of submissions that are a little bit more available to you at heavyweight, when it feels like there's a lot more side control action, and dudes struggle to get up a bit more, and it's not so guard related at heavyweight. So yeah, I had a little stab at that. Also, the main piece of the slate is obviously Mackenzie Dern. I've got 5 units on Mackenzie Dern at plus 110. Obviously, she's now like minus 160 or something, so I've done my job there. I knew she shouldn't be the underdog. I did say it at the time to anyone who would listen. I've also done my brains in on some other Mackenzie Dern related props, because why wouldn't I? I've got 0.65 units on her to win in rounds 4, 5, or by decision at plus 160. Had to win by KO for a quarter of a unit at plus 800. Had to win by KO in 4 or 5 for 0.1 unit at plus 3,300. And 200 to 1 shot for a tenth of a unit on her to win by omoplata. I was watching a interview recently, and she highlighted that she's been very close to hitting those. It's her favorite submission. She always likes to go for it. Do expect her to be on bottom a little bit in this fight, so why not take a punt on it? But yeah, that's 6 units spread across Mackenzie Dern. Very, very confident in her. I seem to be the only one. I really did think there would be a little bit more confidence in Mackenzie Dern than a lot of people are talking about this week. So, I'm hotly anticipating this fight. The nerves are kind of kicking in a little bit, but yeah, I'm just really excited for it. It's going to be a fun one. Next up, Jailton Almeida. I have him for 2 units at minus 161. Obviously, the line's flown up to about minus 200 now, so did my job there yet again. My analysis for this fight, I don't believe that Almeida is going to quickly sub Volkov. I think Volkov has shown himself to be, apart from that Aspinall fight, defensively aware on the mat. And if Almeida doesn't get takedowns, he probably loses anyway. So for me, I think going with some sort of longer distance and Jailton Almeida things makes a lot of sense. So 2 units on the money line, but 0.75 units on Almeida to win and over 1.5 rounds at plus 180, and a quarter of a unit on Almeida by decision at plus 500. So that's 3 units on Almeida in total, 2 units on the money line, and then another unit spread across a bunch of distance related things. And finally, so just the 4th fight that I'm having action on, Ikram Alaskarov. I obviously mentioned earlier on in my Vancouver recap that I had a parlay with Mike Malott live. So I've got 2 units on Ikram Alaskarov to win at minus 104, as obviously the other leg is already cashed. That's a nice position to be in. But I also invested another unit across some Alaskarov props, because I personally think that the KO is more likely than the odds makers are telling us here. I think that Alaskarov also has some slightly sketchy cardio. So if this fight does go long and does go the distance, I think it's going to be much more competitive, and there's no guarantee that Alaskarov is in the driver's seat by 15 minutes. So I've got a variety of bets there. Him to win in under 2.5 rounds, him to win by KO, and him to win by KO in rounds 1 or 2. Plus 150, plus 250, plus 320, around that kind of like ballpark area. So I'm expecting an Ciryl finish in the first half of the fight, and hopefully we get that. So yeah, just 4 fights, but quite a lot of action on all of them. Quite specific with my props, which is quite unlike me, but I feel like I've got a vision for how all 4 of these fights go down, and I've kind of tried to tail my bets to really create that picture. So hopefully the bets manifest the exact way that the fights go down. So yeah, looking forward to a really exciting card. Dom, how about you? What have you got for this one?
Yeah, so this is my slate, and it was a real mess earlier. So I did what you did. I grouped it into the different fights. It made more sense that way. So you can see my positions based on the fights. We've got the position on Nasrat Haqparast at the top, his money line, the decision no action prop, and him to win in round 3. This is all predicated on him fighting a much less experienced opponent in Quillan Salkild, who's coming at very short notice. He's coming in on 9-10 days notice. He was preparing to be, I think he wanted to be on the card with Jack Della Maddalena later in the year. So he said he was 1 week into camp. He actually gave a lot of information about his situation. So 1 week into camp, he said he is heavier than he normally would be this far out from a fight. He always stays ready. He's one of those fighters who's always ready. So he's not like cutting loads of weight, but he obviously is heavier than he'd like to be. So he's at a bit of a disadvantage, as well as the fact that Nasrat was preparing to fight on this card on this date. Nasrat's on a 5-fight win streak. This is lined at even money, which I found surprising. Now I've gone and watched the tape, so I see why people love Quillan. That's the first thing I want to say. Like, his 3 fights, including his Dana White Contender Series fights, are very impressive. He beat Gage Young in a back and forth war. Wasn't like super convincing, but he hit loads of takedowns, but he didn't hold Gage Young down. Then he just one-shotted Anshul Jubilee in like 20 seconds, so we didn't learn anything there, except Anshul Jubilee probably shouldn't be in the UFC. And then his last fight was interesting. He fought a much smaller fighter, a compact, stocky fighter in Yanal Ashmuz, and he sort of dominated him more or less for 2 rounds. He did get reversed in round 1. Then he kind of tired and dropped round 3 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. So, he's had a good start to his career, 2-0 in the UFC, or 3-0 if you include Dana White's Contender Series. But I think this is a big step up for him. And it basically comes down to, does he have the gas to continue shooting takedowns and have grappling success against Haqparast? Because if he doesn't, Haqparast is famous for his boxing, for his volume. He's got good takedown defense. So I think the first round is going to be, we're going to know pretty soon how the fight's going to go, because if Quillan has the grappling success, then it's probably going to be a long night for Nasrat. And then I'm going to be relying on the Abu Dhabi judges to help me out like they did. Well, actually, they went against me because I bet on Gordon. So I rewatched the Gordon Haqparast fight, and that was a blatant robbery. I had Gordon plus 200 ticket, and he clearly won the 3rd round. I still don't, understand how they gave that to Haqparast. But then in Haqparast's last fight, he fought Esteban Ribovics in a back and forth war that some people called a robbery, but I rewatched that as well, and I think that was a lot closer. That came down to the 2nd round, and I could see why people would give it to Ribovics. It's always like, who had the last action. So totality of the round, I thought Haqparast got more shots off on Ribovics in round 2, but right at the end of the round, some damaging strikes were landed by Ribovics. So I kind of can see that it was a very close fight. And I think Haqparast is just not a popular fighter, right? People don't really rate him, don't appreciate him, probably think that he's, been lucky, I guess. So I think that's probably why the line has stayed where it is, and not. I was surprised that it didn't move more towards Haqparast. At first, I thought I would line him like minus 150. Given the grappling risk, I think this is close. So maybe it's more like a minus 125, But I think if Quillan doesn't get the takedowns in that first round, I think that Nasrat could look like really good value. So that's why he is my biggest play here. The win in round 3 is predicated on Quillan tiring. Potentially, we're going to see how his weight cut goes on Friday. Nasrat accumulates damage over time on his opponents. He's a sort of death by 1,000 cuts kind of fighter. So that's why I just thought it's worth a flyer on round 3. Then we've got Mirzakhanov against Rakic. Really excited for this fight. I think Rakic has all the tools to win this fight and none of the mentality. We saw in the final round against Ankalaev, it was 1-1 going into the third round. So first of all, well done for going close with Ankalaev. But then he just completely didn't put anything up in the third round, just running away and just gave the fight to Ankalaev. I've never seen anything like it for a potential number one contenders fight. Of course, like, I'm not a fighter. I don't know what he was feeling in the cage in the third round. Maybe he just felt he just couldn't attack, but he didn't attack hardly at all in that third round, and he gave that up to Ankalaev. But and we saw, of course, he melted. He was wilted by Yuri Prohaska, but we know that's what Yuri does. We also know that Yuri takes a lot of damage up front. So the fact that Rakic was winning those first two rounds was eerily similar to the Khalil fight, Khalil Roundtree. So yeah, I got Mirzakhanov here. I think that the way he fights, he puts it on opponents. He's going to come out strong in the first round. If Rakic doesn't fight fire with fire or shoot a takedown, he might do that. Then he's going to be up against it. So look to see how Rakic, approaches the fight from the outset. He should either A, shoot a takedown as soon as Mirzakhanov enters the pocket, or B, he should be landing big shots on Mirzakhanov. Because if he doesn't, if he's doing the circling away thing, I think it's a matter of time until Mirzakhanov KOs him. That's the way I read the fight. We've got Ciryl Gane here, money line. Also, the main event to go over 1.5 rounds and Gane to win by 4-5 or decision. I realise that these are less likely to happen, but I just feel the prices are very good. This is a betting show, and when you look at value, I really think that Ciryl Gane has more experience than Tom, in main events as well as in the UFC. So I think he's in a good position to draw the fight out. I know that he's definitely going to have weaknesses on the mat compared to Tom. I think the striking's very close. I just really, really hope this fight goes at least into the second round. Obviously I want it to go over 1.5 rounds, ideally, for my bet to hit. And then I think it just gets super interesting because we just don't know how Tom is going to be in those later rounds. And that's why I think that these bets are value. But I'm certainly, less confident here in Gane than, say, Mirzakhanov or Haqparast. Beneath that, we've got Jandiroba. And I do think Dern should be the favourite. So I looked into this fight. I didn't really want to watch the tape on this fight, but I forced myself to because I was curious. And I started to basically see that the line I felt was wide in terms of, I think that Mackenzie should be a favourite, but I think it's quite slight. I think that the one thing I can see that she's definitely improved from the first time they fought. She won the first fight that they had, which was a close fight. It was close in the striking. And they didn't really grapple. So we haven't really seen these two grapple against each other, which I expect they will do over 5 rounds. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that, I'd say maybe, the advantages here are the striking for Mackenzie. She's obviously improved her physicality since the first fight. But I think Werner's also improved. I think she's improved her control, which is the one thing she does. She's not improved her striking, but she's dominating opponents on the mat. And I think Werner has to be brave here, and she has to engage Mackenzie in grappling because that's her best path to victory is grappling. I think that if she grapples with Mackenzie, there's a good chance that because she's better in the wrestling and in controlling transitions, that she could end up on top of scrambles and win minutes. And I know that the criteria is damage, but if you spend 4 minutes on bottom, the judges are likely going to give you that round, not going to give you that round unless you do some serious damage or manage to get up on your feet. So I just feel like, I'm not even betting on Werner necessarily to win here with the first bet. I just think she can make it close. So this is a points handicap, which means that if she wins a couple of rounds or even 1 round on one of the judges' scorecards, then that bet will cash. The Werner to win by 4-5 a decision is just a flyer based on the fact that I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to go long, and that's my position on Werner. But I'm not as confident as well in this fight. It's just that I read the sort of the fight, watch the tape, and I think it's going to be close. Below that, we've got a whole load of props. I've been waffling on for long enough, so I'm not going to go through these. Nothing too controversial here. Let's hear from Josh, and then we'll go on to the pod bets.
Yeah, I mean, pretty stock standard stuff from me, really. You got a main parlay and a few alt bets there. So to break down the main parlay, the first leg is Rombeski-Klein, round 3 starts, yes. I do believe that Rombeski is tough enough to survive Klein's initial onslaught of attacks. I mean, he is shorter, he is more susceptible to head kicks, and that's what Klein does well. But he has never really been hurt to the point to where he gets finished. Although he does always walk away from fights looking like he got into like he walked into a wood chipper, right? I mean, Chris Duncan, that guy just destroyed Rumbeski, and Rumbeski just shrugged it off. It was like, okay, well, I'm bleeding. Okay, whatever. So I do expect Rumbeski to survive until the third round, and that's what I'm basically banking this on, because Klein is great everywhere. The second leg is the Alaskarov money line. To put it simply, I do believe that Alaskarov's forward pressure, his pace, his wrestling, his striking is going to be a total threat to Park. And Park has the tendency to kind of circle around the cage a lot. He's a very defensively sound fighter, but his body posture, his body language is very vulnerable, right? Like whenever you see him fight, he's always in a position in which he looks like he's going to get beat up. And even though he doesn't, visuals matter to the judges, and that's what I expect to occur here with Alaskarov. Rakic, Mirzakhanov, I have that fight not hidden in the scorecard. I do think that we will see some moments in which maybe both fighters delay, but when it comes down to it, I do think that Mirzakhanov does have more finishing potential than Rakic does, especially if he can penetrate that long reach of Rakic and do that quick little 1-2 down the pipeline and just rock Rakic, pretty much, tag that chin, which has been tested and, failed many times by his recent losses. And yeah, I just don't think that we'll see a scorecard being read out there. And then for the final leg 4, a pretty basic bitch one here, really. Jandaroba Dern round 4 starts, yes. I do not see this fight ending in a finish. I am a huge supporter of both women, but I do think that both of them are mirror copies of each other. I do think that we will see a lot of cancelling out, a lot of stalemates on the ground, maybe some positional advantages here and there, maybe some submissions, but this isn't a BJJ fight. There is going to be a lot of blanket fighting where one fighter, probably most likely Jandaroba, just lays on Dern for a long time. Boring, whatever, but when it comes to striking though, I don't expect anything too fantastic. Dern's got good boxing, but she has vulnerabilities. Jandaroba that doesn't strike that well, and she is also pretty vulnerable on the feet. So really, I expect this fight to hit round 4 due to stalemates on the ground, no real sub threat or whatever, and yeah. As for the alt bets, Delgado via KO round 1 or 2, combo round at 4.40. Delgado is a knockout artist. He is primarily a first round finisher. I do believe that Wood, with his experience, can potentially delay that first round finish from happening. But I just think that Delgado is tricky, and if there's not enough tape on Delgado, which there probably isn't, he's only had 2 fights in the UFC. I do expect Wood to have a moment of adjustment in the first round where he just kind of fights defensively, and perhaps Delgado can expose Wood on the feet. Who knows? I don't. Rakic via KO round 2 or 3, combo round for 8.75, basically reflects the third leg for the main parlay. Whilst I did highlight Mirzakhanov's finishing potential, I do think that's strictly within the first half of the fight. In the second half, when Mirzakhanov's exhausted and gasping for air, which we have seen from him in his fights, I do expect Rakic and his experience to take over and thus maybe land a straight right or a straight left, anything that's long and jabby. So I expect Rakic to, if he was to get a finish, for that to happen in the second and third round. Volkov via KO points, that's just a basic bet for me, because either Volkov gets swarmed on the ground by Almeida, or he finds the chin of Almeida early on, or he just defends his takedowns and point fights until a decision, right? So low odds there, which is expected, but I mean it's just an alternative bet, so it's whatever. And Gane via round 4 or 5 or decision, which is an old round betting prop, I guess. 7.75. I do not know how this fight is going to go, but I do suspect that if there is no finish, Gane is going to take over in his later rounds. He is more used to fighting at long distances in fights. I mean, his fight against Ngannou was a decision fight. I think he took Tuivasa to the 3rd or 4th round. You know, I mean, basically any fight that Gane has gone to the distance with in a 5-round fight, he's dominated in those rounds because his cardio is really good. His style is that long duration style where he just balances out his strikes greatly for all those things, right? So that's pretty much my slate there. Yeah.
So that's all of our individual bets for this week. And as always, we're moving on to our podcast bets where we work together. We're collaborating on building a bankroll together. We've had 2 successful weeks in a row. So now we've, last week we hit them a lot. Kevin Holland over 2.5 rounds, which was plus 140. He was quite lucky to hit, I think, in the end, the way the fight played out. We obviously lost the Jasmine wins inside the distance decision no action prop, but we came good with the Charles Jourdain money line. So we have lined up some bets for this week, and we'll take you through those now. So perhaps, Will, do you want to talk through the first 2 here on the right?
Yes, sir. So first off, we have a risk on Jailton Almeida to win at minus 200. We collectively just feel that he's going to have the ability to land takedowns against Volkov and should therefore be able to dictate the fight. I mean, for every moment that Almeida is grappling successfully, he will be winning. And whether that leads to a finish or leads to minute winning, it won't lead to Volkov racking up significant strikes or landing any damage, hopefully. So, I think Jailton Almeida at minus 200 is a worthwhile investment. Also, Ikram Alaskerov at minus 225. Very different fight from the previous one in that he just has a lot of like power and physicality advantage over the Iron Turtle, in my opinion. We feel that he has that early danger threat as well, and that he should prove too much for Park while they're both fresh. His takedown defense is proven very good in his career so far, so that probably will hold up, and I think Iron Turtle won't be able to survive the storm that comes his way early. So minus 225 is a fair price for that. Personally, think it should be like more in the minus 300, 400 range, if I'm honest.
Then we've got Ciryl Gane. Do you want to talk about that one, Josh? And the fact that we've got the over 1.5 for the bottom. So we've got the over 1.5 in the main event, and we've got Ciryl Gane money line in the main event.
All right. Well, I mean, look, when it comes down to this scale of heavyweight fights between 2 of the most unique fighters in a division who are at the peak of their game, you can't really count out the dog here, right? I mean, the odds dictate that Aspinall's going to win. I reckon it's going to be closer than that. But Gane has avenues to win here. I reckon that if Gane does what Gane does, in that he moves laterally, that he throws off the jab, that he remains defensively sound as well as quick. He needs to be quick against Aspinall. I do believe that he is going to survive. Gane also is improving his takedown defense apparently, and I know that I believe Will has a bet on. Hang on, someone here has a bet on Gane. I remember I have the memory of a goldfish. It's terrible. I apologize, but if you do have a bet on Gane via Aspinall via submission, I do believe that it's going to be at some risk here, only because Gane has kind of brought in a high-level wrestler to his camp, and Gane already had decent counter wrestling before. Outside of that John Jones thing, I get that John Jones is the GOAT and whatever, but still, I do believe that Gane might show some new things up his sleeve, right? So taking him as a dog pick for a $3.33 risk is yeah, I like it. We like it, and hopefully it hits. As for the over 1.5 bet that we have there, the longer this fight goes on, the more chances Gunn has to win. And so, obviously, from my perspective and our perspective, actually, I guess, Gunn has that distance fight mentality. Like, no matter what round the fight goes on into, he is capable of finding a finish. He is capable of just using his long endurance cardio to expose Tom Aspinall, who hasn't displayed that long endurance cardio of his. Like we haven't seen Aspinall fight in the third or fourth round yet. Like we don't know what's going to happen. So basically, we're banking on Gane to look as dangerous as he ever looks in those later rounds, and for Aspinall to not look as good as he always does in his first two rounds. So yeah, that's my take, my breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah, and the final two bets I've spoken about Nasrat Haqparast. Just think that he should be the favourite, and think the line offers some value here for his money line. And then I kind of had to twist the guy's arms a little bit to put the Mario Bautista plus 3.5 points. I think if this fight was in Vegas, this would be even greater value, but it's plus 185. And what it means is Mario Bautista needs to win one round on the judges' scorecards for this to hit, and it will reward us 2-1 effectively. So, at current pricing, it's saying he basically has very little chance, like 33% chance of getting around, whereas we feel it's greater than that. So we're worth risking $5 to win, nine basically. So that's our 6 bets, more than usual because it's a great card with lots of good betting spots. And as always, you can find these bets and how they track on our BetMMA profile. As I said, we were having a bit of a good run and we hope to keep it going. So finally, to sign us off, maybe Josh, you'd like to do the honors?
Yeah, sure. We have 3 social media accounts to follow, or at least 3 to participate in. We have a Discord, which is pretty active. It's full of memes and fun jokes and whatever, but there's also betting stuff to talk about, really. We now have a Twitter, or an X, as they call it these days. So follow us there for up-to-date episodes. Eventually, once we grow enough there, we'll do some polls or some giveaways or whatever, but that's like way down the line. And we also have a Reddit. So Dom has been doing an excellent job at posting it in the UFC Shop subreddit, as well as Will. So check out both of their posts there weekly. And yeah, that's about it for our socials.